Elephant infested with thousands of ticks rescued by brave team. Dr. Arya Sen's phone buzzed at exactly 3:33 a.m. She almost ignored it. Another midnight crisis could wait until morning. But something made her reach for the device, squinting at the harsh blue light. The message contained no sender information, just coordinates, and 12 words that made her blood run cold. They're using him. The bull elephant knows where the others hide. Hurry! Arya sat up in bed, fully awake now. After 15 years of wildlife veterinary work, she'd learned to trust her instincts. This message wasn't the usual panic about an elephant wandering into a village or a routine injury. The cryptic nature, the timing, something was very wrong. She dialed Sophia, her team's medic. "I'm sending you a message. What do you make of it?" A few seconds of silence followed. "Coordinates put it deep in the restricted zone," Sophia said, her voice tense. "That area's been off limits since the government's new conservation initiative. Weird thing is, I heard rumors about elephant movements there last week. But when I tried to investigate, I got stonewalled by some official who wouldn't even show me his ID." That matched the unease growing in Arya's gut. The new wildlife protection policies had seemed too good to be true: sudden funding, increased patrols, and restricted zones that even legitimate conservation teams couldn't access. "Get Leo and Malik," she said. "Meet me at the sanctuary in 30 minutes. And Sophia? Come armed." The sanctuary was eerily quiet when Arya arrived, save for the distant trumpet of elephants in their nighttime enclosures. She found her team waiting by the medical vehicle, Leo checking his tracking equipment, Malik radio scanning for patrol patterns, and Sophia organizing her field medkit. They looked up as she approached, faces grim in the pre-dawn darkness. "I know what you're thinking," Arya said before anyone could speak. "We don't have clearance for that zone. If we're caught, we could lose our licenses. Maybe worse." She pulled up the message on her phone, showing them the coordinates. "But something's very wrong here. Those rumors you heard, Sophia? I've been hearing things too. Missing elephants. Strange vehicle movements. Officials who appear and disappear without explanation." Leo, who'd been studying the coordinates, looked up sharply. "This location, it's near where we found those shell casings last month. The ones that disappeared from evidence before we could test them." "Exactly," Arya said. "I think someone's using official protection as a cover. And whatever's happening to that elephant, it's bad enough that someone risked sending us that warning." Malik, usually the most cautious of the group, surprised them all. "We took an oath to protect these animals. If someone's abusing the system to hurt them, we have to act." He patted his rifle. "Besides, I've called in some favors. If things go wrong, we'll have backup, unofficial, but reliable." They loaded the vehicle in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. As they pulled out of the sanctuary, Arya noticed a black SUV in her rearview mirror, its headlights off despite the darkness. When she turned onto the main road, it followed. When she made a series of random turns, it stayed with them. "We've got a tail," she murmured. "Everyone see it?" Sophia checked her mirror. "Government plates, but they're new. Not like the usual patrol vehicles." "I don't like this," Leo said, adjusting his binoculars. "Wait, they're falling back." The SUV had indeed dropped behind, maintaining a distance just at the edge of visibility. When they stopped at a checkpoint, it vanished completely. But as they approached the restricted zone's boundary, Arya spotted it again, ghosting along a parallel road. "They're hurting us," Malik realized. "But why not just stop us?" The answer came as they passed the last checkpoint before the restricted zone. The guard post was empty, highly unusual for this time of night. A logbook lay open, a coffee cup still steaming beside it. Someone had cleared their path. "This feels like a trap," Sophia said, voicing what they were all thinking. "Probably is," Arya agreed, gripping the steering wheel tighter. "But that elephant's suffering right now. If someone's hurting it badly enough to risk sending us that message." She let the thought hang. They drove on in tense silence as the jungle grew denser around them. The coordinates led them deep into territory that hadn't seen legitimate conservation activity in months. Leo spotted the first warning sign: fresh tire tracks that didn't match any authorized vehicle types. Then came Sophia's discovery: discarded medical supplies of a type used in illegal wildlife trafficking. The black SUV had disappeared again, but now they could hear distant engine sounds, as if multiple vehicles were moving through the jungle. Malik's radio crackled with fragments of encrypted communications. "Stop here," Leo suddenly commanded. "Kill the lights." They sat in darkness, listening. A low, pained sound carried through the trees, the unmistakable cry of an elephant in distress. But there was something wrong about it, something that made the hair on Arya's neck stand up. The cry wasn't just pain, it held a note of utter despair she'd never heard before. "That's why they let us through," she whispered, a horrible realization dawning. "Whatever's happening to that elephant, they want witnesses. This isn't just about hurting one animal. It's a message," Malik agreed. "But to whom?" Before anyone could answer, their phones buzzed simultaneously. Another anonymous message, same sender. "You're close. But you're not alone. They're watching. Save him, and you'll find the truth. Fail, and everything burns. P.S. Check the mud by his left foreleg. The real horror isn't what you can see." Arya stared at her team in the darkness, each face illuminated by the ghostly glow of their phone screens. They'd walked into something much bigger and darker than a simple rescue. But they were already here, and that elephant's cry held such pain. "We go on," she decided. "But carefully. Sophia, get the tranquilizer kit ready. Leo, track our exit routes. Malik." She met his eyes. "If you need to call in those favors, do it now." They stepped out into the jungle's darkness, medical kits and weapons ready. Somewhere ahead, hidden in the trees, an elephant suffered. Behind them, unseen watchers waited. And in Arya's pocket, her phone buzzed one final time. "The truth will cost you. Are you ready to pay the price?" The first thing they noticed was the silence. No birds, no insects, no rustling leaves, as if the jungle itself was holding its breath. The team moved forward in the pre-dawn darkness, their flashlights cutting thin beams through the mist. Leo led the way, tracking the elephant's cries that had grown weaker with each passing minute. "Blood," Sophia whispered, crouching to examine a dark patch on a fallen leaf. "But something's wrong with it. It's black." She pulled out a testing kit, hands steady despite the tension. "It's full of toxins. Whatever's happening to this elephant, it's not just external injuries." A branch snapped somewhere in the darkness. Malik raised his rifle, scanning the trees, but saw only shadows. The black SUV that had followed them was nowhere in sight, yet they all felt watched, as if the jungle's eyes had turned hostile. "There!" Leo pointed through a gap in the foliage. "Oh God!" The elephant stood in a small clearing, or rather, it tried to stand. Its massive legs trembled with the effort, and even in the dim light, they could see why. Thousands of ticks, each swollen to the size of a grape, covered its body in writhing patches. The creature's skin, normally tough and gray, was angry red where visible, weeping from countless wounds. But it was the eyes that struck Arya hardest, deep brown pools of such profound suffering that she had to look away. "This isn't natural," she said, moving closer. "Ticks don't behave like this. They don't cluster in these patterns, and they don't." She stopped, noticing something that made her stomach turn. "They're not random. Look at the arrangement. They've been placed." Sophia's hand flew to her mouth. "Someone did this deliberately. But why? The time it would take, the effort. To weaken him," Malik said grimly. "Look at his legs. Half buried in the mud were heavy chains, expertly hidden by debris and growth that suggested they'd been there for weeks. The elephant hadn't wandered here by accident. This was a prison, carefully designed to look natural to anyone who didn't look too closely." Leo circled the clearing, his tracker's eyes missing nothing. "Recent tire tracks. Multiple vehicles. And look, solar-powered cameras in the trees. Someone's been monitoring this whole setup. The elephant swayed dangerously, and Arya rushed forward with a stabilizing shot ready. But as she got closer, she noticed something that stopped her cold. The creature's ears and trunk bore strange markings, not natural scars, but deliberate patterns cut with surgical precision. "Sophia," she called, her voice shaking. "Come look at these markings. Tell me I'm wrong." The medic approached, examined the scars, and went pale. "Trafficking symbols. High-level ones. I've only seen these in intelligence briefings. They're used by the Ivory Crown," Malik finished. "The biggest wildlife trafficking network in Asia. But they usually finish elephants for their tusks. Why keep this one alive and trapped?" As if in answer, the elephant suddenly thrashed, a spasm of pain racing through its massive body. The movement dislodged some of the mud around its left foreleg, the spot mentioned in the anonymous message. Sophia knelt to examine it, her flashlight revealing something that made them all freeze. Embedded in the elephant's flesh, cleverly hidden among the ticks, were dozens of tiny devices, each no bigger than a fingernail. They pulsed with faint red lights, barely visible unless you knew exactly where to look. "Tracking devices?" Leo breathed. "But they're not tracking this elephant. They're using him to find the others." Arya realized, horror dawning. Wild elephants would avoid humans, but they trust one of their own. This bull is a known leader, respected by multiple herds. They're using his suffering as a way to map the secret paths, the hidden water sources, everything. Sophia's medical scanner beeped as she passed it over the devices. "These aren't just trackers. They're transmitting vital signs, movement patterns, proximity to other elephants. It's a full surveillance system, gathering data on every herd he meets." "An elephant spy," Malik said bitterly. "Forced to betray his own kind." A deep rumble emanated from the elephant's chest, not quite a cry, not quite a groan, but something in between that spoke of unimaginable betrayal. Arya stepped closer, speaking softly in the way she'd used to calm injured animals for 15 years. The elephant's eye rolled to meet hers, and in that moment she saw something that shook her to her core: awareness. This magnificent creature knew exactly what was being done to him. "We need to sedate him," she decided. "Remove those devices, treat these wounds, and—" The words died in her throat as a new sound cut through the jungle's unnatural silence, the distinctive click of multiple safety catches being released. Flashlight beams suddenly crisscrossed the clearing, revealing armed figures emerging from the shadows. Their weapons were professional grade, their movements military precise. But what made Arya's blood run cold was their leader's face. She'd seen it just last week at a government wildlife protection meeting. "Dr. Sun," the man said, his official conservationist badge glinting in the darkness. "I'm afraid this is a restricted research project. You're interfering with a very expensive government study of elephant migration patterns." "Research?" Sophia spat the word. "You're torturing him." The man's smile didn't reach his eyes. "A regrettable but necessary discomfort for the greater good. Though I'm curious." He studied them with cold interest. "How did you find this location? Who told you where to look?" Before anyone could respond, the elephant let out a sudden, desperate trumpet, a warning. In the split second of distraction, Malik's hand moved to his radio, pressing a button. A tiny red light began blinking, the emergency signal to his mysterious friends. But as armed figures closed in around them, Arya realized help might come too late. They were alone in the dark jungle with people who had spent weeks methodically torturing an elephant. And they had just discovered secrets that some very powerful people would finish to protect. The elephant's eye met hers again, and this time she saw something new there, not just pain, but a fierce determination. Whatever happened next, this magnificent creature wasn't finished fighting. And neither was she. "Research project?" Arya's voice cut through the tense silence. "Let's be honest about what this really is." She stood her ground as the armed figures tightened their circle. "Those tracking devices don't just monitor location. They're designed to cause pain, aren't they?" The government official, who'd introduced himself as Director Chen at wildlife protection meetings, raised an eyebrow. "Quite observant, Dr. Senator, though you've only scratched the surface." He gestured to one of his men, who pulled out a tablet displaying a complex network of blinking dots. "Each device serves multiple purposes. Location tracking, yes, but also behavioral modification." The elephant swayed on its feet, and Sophia instinctively moved to steady it. The armed men tensed, but Chen waved them down, seeming almost eager to explain his twisted work. "You see, wild herds are becoming too clever at evading traditional tracking methods. But they can't evade one of their own, especially not a respected bull elephant." His voice carried a note of pride that made Arya's skin crawl. "The devices administer calculated doses of pain when he strays from our predetermined paths. He leads us straight to the herds, and they never suspect a thing." A shot rang out suddenly, making everyone jump. But it wasn't aimed at the team. It hit the ground near the elephant's feet, making the already terrified creature try to rear up despite its chains. "That was unnecessary." Chen snapped at the shooter, revealing the first crack in his controlled demeanor. "The asset is already damaged enough." "The asset?" Leo's disgust was palpable. "He's a living creature, not a piece of equipment." But Chen wasn't listening. He'd moved to examine the elephant's leg where some of the tracking devices had been exposed. "Unfortunate. The mud coverage was perfect until you disturbed it. Do you know how long it took to position each device precisely? The calculations involved in creating a neuropain map of this scale?" As he spoke, Sophia was slowly reaching into her medical kit, her movements deliberate and careful. Arya caught her eye, understanding instantly. While Chen was distracted with his monologue, the medic was preparing a very specific combination of drugs. "You're not just tracking the herds," Malik said, drawing Chen's attention. "This is about something bigger, isn't it? The restricted zones, the fake conservation initiatives, the blocked investigations." A slow smile spread across Chen's face. "Very good, Ranger. You're right, finding elephants is just the beginning. We're mapping the entire underground wildlife highway. Every secret path, every hidden water source, every natural corridor that animals use to cross borders undetected." He patted the elephant's leg almost affectionately. "Our friend here is helping us create the most comprehensive trafficking route map ever made. For the Ivory Crown," Arya said, the pieces finally clicking into place. "You're not just working for the government. You're helping traffickers optimize their entire operation." A slow clap echoed from the darkness beyond the clearing. A new figure emerged, tall, elegantly dressed despite the jungle setting, with a face that seemed assembled from sharp angles. The armed men straightened noticeably at his arrival. "Excellent deduction," the newcomer said. "Though I prefer to think of it as bringing order to chaos. The wildlife trade is happening whether we like it or not. We're simply making it more efficient." He turned to Chin. "Speaking of efficiency, we're behind schedule. Finish them and let's move on. We have 3 new herds to process tonight." "Dante Kova," Sophia breathed, recognizing the infamous trafficker. "You're supposed to be in prison. Prison is for people who don't have friends in government." Kova smiled. "Now, about that finishing you part." The elephant suddenly trumpeted, not a cry of pain this time, but something else. A call. And to everyone's shock, it was answered. From somewhere in the darkness came an answering trumpet, then another, and another. "Impossible." Chin grabbed his tablet. "There are no herds in this sector tonight. We tracked them all." A massive shape burst through the trees, another bull elephant, followed by 2 more. But these weren't random elephants. Arya recognized them instantly, elephants from their sanctuary, each one rehabilitated and released over the years. Elephants who knew humans weren't all enemies. Elephants who'd come to help one of their own. In the chaos that followed, several things happened at once. Sophia threw something from her medical kit, not at the captive elephant, but at the armed men. A gas canister exploded, filling the air with disorienting smoke. Malik's radio crackled to life as his mysterious backup finally arrived, their vehicle's engines roaring through the underbrush. And Leo, who'd been quietly adjusting his tracking equipment throughout Chen's monologue, pressed a button that sent a piercing frequency through the clearing, one that made all the tracking devices spark and short out simultaneously. The chained elephant, sensing its chance, pulled against its restraints with newfound strength. The chains, weakened by weeks of strain and jungle weather, finally snapped. Free for the first time in months, the massive creature joined its brethren in charging the armed men, who scattered in panic. "The devices!" Chen screamed, trying to salvage his precious data. "Save the neural map!" Years of work. But Kova was already running, demonstrating the cold pragmatism that had kept him alive so long. "Burn it all!" he shouted to his men. "No evidence!" Gunfire erupted from multiple directions. The rescue elephants formed a protective circle around their injured friend, their massive bodies shielding him from bullets. Through the smoke and chaos, Arya caught glimpses of new figures emerging. Malik's backup, she realized. They moved with military precision, but wore no uniforms. "Arya!" Sophia called out. "The tracking devices are finishing him." The bull elephant had collapsed, its body convulsing as the shorted-out devices malfunctioned, pumping random bursts of pain through its nervous system. Arya ran to him, dodging bullets and charging elephants, her medical kit ready. She had one chance to save him, but it meant getting dangerously close to those failing devices. "Cover her!" Malik shouted. His backup team responded instantly, laying down suppressing fire that drove Chen's men back into the trees. But Kova wasn't finished. He appeared through the smoke, aiming not at Arya but at the elephant's head. "If we can have it," he snarled. "No one will." The gun roared, but the bullet never reached its target. Leo had thrown himself forward, knocking Kova's arm up. The shot went wild, and in the struggle that followed, something fell from the trafficker's jacket, a phone, its screen displaying a horrifying array of similar operations. Dozens of elephants, all across Asia, all being used as unwitting spies against their own kind. "It's bigger than we thought," Leo gasped, still grappling with Kova. "It's not just one elephant, it's a whole network." Arya didn't hesitate. She plunged her hands into the mud around the elephant's leg, ignoring the pain as the failing devices shocked her. One by one, she pulled them out, Sophia working beside her to treat the wounds they left behind. The elephant's eye found hers again, and this time she saw something she never expected: trust. But Chen wasn't done. Emerging from the smoke with a military-grade weapon, he took aim at the entire group. "Nobody move! This ends now." A dark shape dropped from the trees, the mysterious informant who'd sent them the original message. In the chaos of battle, no one had noticed another player entering the field. Chen went down hard, his weapon clattering away, and the informant's hood fell back to reveal a face Arya knew well, Dr. Maya Chen, the director's own daughter. "Hello, father," she said coldly. "The world needs to know what you've done." The clearing fell silent except for the labored breathing of the injured elephant, and the distant sounds of gunfire as Malik's backup team pursued Chen's scattered men through the jungle. Dr. Maya Chen stood over her father, her face a mask of controlled fury. 3 years, she said, her voice trembling. 3 years I watched you build this operation, pretending to be the perfect conservation director while secretly enabling the slaughter of the very animals you swore to protect. Director Chen laughed from his position on the ground, blood trickling from his split lip. "And what did your noble spying accomplish, daughter? You've revealed yourself now. Do you think Kova's organization will let you live after this?" Bold words from a fallen man. Dante Kova's smooth voice cut through the tension. He'd somehow slipped free of Leo during the chaos and now stood at the clearing's edge, holding a small black device. "But Chen is right about one thing. None of you will leave this jungle alive." He pressed a button on the device. Instantly, the injured elephant bellowed in agony as the remaining tracking devices in its flesh reactivated, now operating at full power. The massive creature crashed to its knees, its nervous system overwhelmed by synchronized bursts of pain. "Stop!" Arya rushed forward, but Kova's men emerged from the shadows, weapons trained on the team. The rescue elephants trumpeted in distress, wanting to help their friend but held back by the wall of guns. "Here's what's going to happen," Kova said, his calm voice a chilling contrast to the elephant's suffering. "You're going to watch as this elephant fulfills its final purpose. The neural map we've created from its pain responses is worth millions, the perfect tool for controlling any elephant we capture in the future. Once the data upload is complete, we'll harvest its tusks as a bonus." He pulled out a satellite phone. "I have 200 armed men arriving in 20 minutes. Your little backup team can't stop them all. But I'm feeling generous, so I'll offer you a choice." Sophia, still trying to stabilize the elephant, looked up with hatred in her eyes. "We don't make deals with butchers." "Oh, but you will," Kova smiled. "Because this isn't just about one elephant anymore." He tossed Chen's tablet to the ground between them. On its cracked screen, dozens of blinking dots moved across a map of Asia. Each dot is another elephant like this one, embedded with our devices, unknowingly leading us to every herd on the continent. Walk away now, and you might survive to save some of them. Maya stepped forward, her father's gun now in her hands. "You're forgetting something. I have 3 years of evidence against your entire operation. One phone call and it goes public." "Ah yes," the loyal daughter turned informant. Kova's smile widened. "Tell me, did you ever wonder why we let you spy on us for so long? Why your father's security was so surprisingly easy to bypass?" The color drained from Maya's face as Director Chen began laughing again. "You were never as clever as you thought, daughter. We fed you exactly what we wanted leaked. Use your tips to identify and eliminate potential weaknesses in our operation. In fact, you've helped us more than you know." "No," Maya whispered, the gun shaking in her hands. "Yes," Kova said. "And now, thanks to your final message leading this team here, we have a perfect opportunity to eliminate several prominent conservation figures in what will tragically be reported as a poaching incident gone wrong. The subsequent crackdown will let us place even more of our people in key government positions. Really, my dear, you've outdone yourself." The injured elephant suddenly lurched to its feet, fighting through the pain of the devices. Its eyes found areas again, and in them she saw not just suffering, but a desperate plea. The massive creature was asking for something, no, offering something. "The upload is at 60%, one of Kova's men reported, checking a monitor. "Neural map will be complete in 10 minutes. Arya's mind raced. The elephant was trying to tell her something. She looked at its posture, the way it was angling itself despite the pain, and suddenly understood. It was offering to charge, to create chaos one final time, even though doing so under the influence of the tracking devices would likely finish it. She caught Sophia's eye, then Leo's, then Malik's. Each gave a tiny nod. They'd all come to the same realization. Even Maya, seeing their subtle exchange, shifted her position slightly. 5 minutes to upload completion, the monitor man called. "Tick-tock," Kova said pleasantly. "What's it going to be? Walk away and live, or die for nothing? The evidence will be destroyed either way." Arya stepped forward, appearing to slump in defeat. "You're right. We can't win this one. But..." She looked at the elephant, tears in her eyes. "Can I at least say goodbye to him? As a vet, I need closure." Kova considered for a moment, then nodded magnanimously. "Of course. Professional courtesy. You have 1 minute." Arya approached the elephant slowly, speaking softly as she had thousands of times before with injured animals. But this time, her gentle words carried a different message. "Brave boy. One last fight. Make it count." She was 3 steps from the elephant when several things happened simultaneously. Maya suddenly fired her father's gun, not at Kova, but at the monitoring equipment. Sophia threw the contents of 3 syringes, powerful stimulants, not sedatives, directly into the elephant's flank. And Leo activated a hidden frequency disruptor that scrambled the tracking devices for a crucial few seconds. The elephant, driven by stimulants and freed momentarily from the device's control, did exactly what they'd hoped. It charged straight at Kova's men, sending them scattering. The rescue elephants, as if sensing the plan, joined in from the other side, creating complete chaos. "The data!" Kova screamed. "Save the neural map!" But it was too late. In the confusion, Malik's backup team had returned, and the clearing erupted into an all-out firefight. Director Chen tried to flee but found himself face to face with his daughter. "The evidence isn't just on a phone, Father," Maya said coldly. "I've been broadcasting everything since I got here. The whole world is watching now." Kova, realizing his perfect plan was unraveling, raised his weapon to take out as many of them as he could. But he'd forgotten about the elephant, the very creature he tortured for months. One swipe of its trunk sent the trafficker flying into the undergrowth. The elephant trumpeted in triumph, but its victory was short-lived. The tracking devices, overloading from the disrupted signal, began to short out one by one. Each tiny explosion sent waves of agony through the magnificent creature's body. "No!" Arya rushed forward as the elephant began to sway. "No, please! Not after all this. Not when we're so close." The elephant's eyes met hers one final time. In them, she saw neither pain nor fear, only a quiet acceptance, and perhaps even a kind of peace. Then its legs buckled, and the brave bull who had endured so much began to fall. The question was, could they save it in time, or had the price of victory been too high? Time seemed to slow as the elephant began to fall. Arya's mind flashed through every medical procedure she'd ever learned, every emergency protocol, searching desperately for a way to save this magnificent creature who'd fought so bravely. Around her, chaos still reigned, gunfire, shouts, the thundering movements of the rescue elephants. But all she could focus on was the fading light in those intelligent eyes. "Sophia!" she shouted. "The emergency kit! Now!" Sophia was already moving, her medical training taking over. She slid through the mud beneath the falling elephant, ignoring the danger of being crushed, and jammed 3 auto-injectors into its flesh in rapid succession. Adrenaline, cardiac stabilizer, and... She hesitated for a split second before pulling out a 4 syringe, this one filled with an experimental compound. "Something I've been developing. Either it helps or..." The elephant's massive body hit the ground with an impact that shook the clearing. But its heart was still beating, its chest still rising and falling in shallow breaths. The tracking devices, now mostly destroyed, sparked weakly under its skin like dying fireflies. "We need to get these out," Arya said, already cutting into the first wound. "All of them. Before they..." A bullet kicked up mud next to her head. Kova had emerged from the undergrowth, bloodied but alive, his expensive suit now in tatters. "Step away from the investment," he snarled, his smooth facade finally cracking. To everyone's surprise, it was Director Chen who responded. "Investment?" He laughed bitterly from where Maya still held him at gunpoint. "You fool! You have no idea what you're actually part of, do you?" Kova's eyes narrowed. "I run this operation." You run nothing," Chen spat. "You're just another puppet. Did you really think a common trafficker could orchestrate something this sophisticated?" He turned to his daughter. "Show them. Show them what you really found in those 3 years of spying." Maya's hands trembled as she pulled out a phone, not her own, but one she'd taken from her father earlier. "The elephant trafficking, it's not about money. It's about control. The neural mapping technology, the tracking devices, they're prototypes. Testing grounds for something bigger." On the phone screen, classified documents scrolled past: military contracts, weapons development programs, neural control systems designed not for elephants, but for human beings. The wildlife trafficking operation was just a cover, a way to perfect the technology without drawing attention. "My God!" Sophia whispered, still working to remove tracking devices from the elephant's flesh. "They were using endangered animals because no one would look too closely at what was happening in wildlife reserves. And who would believe the victims even if they could talk?" Chen smiled grimly. "The perfect testing ground. Though I must admit, this bull proved particularly resilient. Most subjects don't last nearly as long." The elephant's eye opened at this, focusing on Chen with an intensity that made the man step back despite himself. Even now, dying on the ground, the creature's spirit remained unbroken. Enough! Kova raised his gun again, but before he could fire, a new sound cut through the jungle: helicopter rotors. That's not your backup, Malik said, checking his radio. My friends called in some friends of their own. Interpol's Special Environmental Crime Unit. They've been building a case against your operation for months. Maya's broadcast was the final piece they needed. Kova's face contorted with rage. He swung his weapon toward the elephant, determined to destroy the evidence of his crimes. But the rescue elephants, who had been systematically driving back his remaining men, had not forgotten about him. A massive trunk swept him off his feet before he could pull the trigger. This time, when he hit the ground, he didn't get up. The devices are out, Sophia announced, her hands covered in blood as she removed the last tracker. But he's lost too much blood. His system is shutting down. The helicopter was getting closer, searchlights cutting through the pre-dawn gloom. But Arya knew they didn't have time to wait for help to arrive. The elephant's breathing was becoming more labored with each passing second. Then she remembered something from years ago, a crazy theory she developed but never had the chance to test. The rescue elephants, she said suddenly. They're not just random elephants from our sanctuary. They're his family. His herd. That's why they came. Sophia looked up sharply. You don't mean? Blood transfer. Right here, right now. It's his only chance. It was dangerous, unprecedented, and probably impossible. But as Arya looked at the rescue elephants, she saw something extraordinary. They were already moving into position around their fallen friend, as if they understood exactly what was needed. They know, Leo said in awe. They actually understand. What followed was perhaps the most unusual medical procedure ever attempted in the field. While Malik's team secured the perimeter and Maya kept her father covered, Arya and Sophia worked frantically to set up a direct blood transfer from two of the rescue elephants to their dying friend. The donor elephants stood perfectly still, as if knowing the importance of their role. It's working, Sophia whispered as color slowly began returning to the bull elephant's hide. His vitals are stabilizing. The stimulant compound is helping his body accept the transfer. The morning sun was finally rising, painting the jungle in shades of gold. The helicopter landed in a nearby clearing, disgorging teams of armed Interpol agents. They quickly took control of the scene, securing Chen, Kova, and their remaining men. But their commanding officer, seeing the impromptu Elephant Trauma Center, had the wisdom to let Arya and her team finish their work. Maya watched as her father was led away in handcuffs. 3 years of gathering evidence, she said quietly. And in the end, it exposed something far darker than I ever imagined. You did the right thing, Malik told her, squeezing her shoulder. Your father's operation is finished. The other elephants they were using, they'll all be found and freed now. The bull elephant's eye opened again, clearer now. It found Arya's face and held her gaze. In that look was something that transcended the barrier between species, a connection forged through struggle, sacrifice, and survival. Welcome back, brave boy, Arya whispered, tears streaming down her face. Welcome back. But their victory celebration was premature. Because at that moment, Leo noticed something that made his blood run cold. One of the tracking devices they'd removed still had power, and on its tiny screen, a message was flashing. Contingency protocol activated. Secondary systems online. The battle, it seemed, wasn't over yet. Secondary systems? Sophia stared at the blinking tracking device. What does that mean? Her answer came in the form of a high-pitched whine emanating from the jungle around them. Hidden speakers, dozens of them, cleverly disguised as natural formations, began broadcasting a frequency that made the rescue elephant stamp and trumpet in distress. The bull elephant, still weak from his ordeal, tried to rise but couldn't. Neurocontrol failsafe. Director Chen called out as Interpol agents led him to the helicopter. You didn't think we'd risk losing control of such valuable test subjects, did you? In 30 seconds, that sound will drive every elephant within 5 miles into a panic. They'll run blindly, trampling anything in their path, including themselves. Maya rushed to her father. How do we stop it? That's the beauty of it. He smiled. You don't. The system is autonomous now. Even if you destroy every speaker, the signal is being broadcast from multiple hidden transmitters. By sunset, you'll have a graveyard of test subjects that can never testify to what was done to them. The rescue elephants were growing more agitated by the second. The bull elephant trumpeted weakly, trying to calm them, but the sound was clearly causing them physical pain. Arya could see blood beginning to trickle from their ears. Leo! She shouted. The frequency disruptor you used earlier won't work, he said grimly. This signal's different. More complex. It would take hours to analyze and counter it, and we have seconds. The elephant's eyes found Arya's again, and suddenly she understood. It's not about the signal, she said. It's about the connection. Sophia, your experimental compound, what exactly does it do? Sophia's eyes widened as she caught on. It enhances neuroplasticity and environmental awareness. I developed it to help injured elephants reconnect with their herds, but it might let them resist the signal through their social bonds. Arya finished. She turned to the bull elephant. That's why you lasted so long under their control, isn't it? Your connection to your family was stronger than their technology. The elephant's eye held such intelligence, such understanding, that there could be no doubt. Despite everything that had been done to him, his love for his herd had never broken. Everyone clear the area, Arya commanded. As the Interpol agents scrambled back, she pulled out every remaining dose of Sophia's compound. One by one, she injected the rescue elephants, saving the last dose for the bull. It's up to you now, she whispered to him. Show them the way. The effect was almost immediate. The bull elephant raised his head, and despite his weakness, despite the screaming signals assaulting his nervous system, he produced a new sound, not a trumpet of pain or fear, but something deeper, more primal. A call that spoke of family, of trust, of bonds that no human technology could sever. One by one, the rescue elephants responded. Their panic began to subside. They moved closer to their fallen friend, forming a circle of protection. The bull called again, and this time, answers came from deeper in the jungle. Other elephants, drawn by the confusion, began to emerge from the trees. Impossible, Chen breathed. The signal. But it wasn't impossible. As they watched in awe, more elephants joined the circle. Each new arrival seemed to strengthen the others. The high-pitched whine of the speakers continued, but its effect was diminishing. The elephants had found something stronger than artificial neural control, their ancient bonds of family and community. Leo, Arya said urgently. The transmitters. Can you trace them now? He checked his equipment, and a slow smile spread across his face. The elephants, they're triangulating the signal for us. Every time they move, they're revealing another transmitter location through their reactions. I can map them all. Malik was already on his radio, directing his team to the coordinates Leo called out. One by one, the hidden transmitters were found and destroyed. With each one that fell silent, the elephant's triumph grew stronger. As the last transmitter died, the bull elephant finally managed to stand. Weak but unbowed, he faced Chen as the Interpol agents prepared to load him onto their helicopter. There was no hatred in his gaze, only a dignity that made the human look small and petty in comparison. Your perfect testing ground had a fatal flaw, Maya told her father. You thought using animals would make your experiments easier to hide. But you forgot something: they can love. And love, it turns out, is stronger than any control system you could design. The sun was fully risen now, painting the jungle in shades of hope. Medical evacuation helicopters arrived to airlift the bull elephant to a specialized care facility. The other elephants followed on the ground, refusing to leave their friend. Not a single one had been lost to Chen's final trap. 6 months later, Arya stood at the edge of a different clearing. The bull elephant's recovery had been long and difficult, but today marked his return to the wild. The last of his scars had healed, and his eyes were clear and bright. Sophia's compound had been refined and used to help free all the other elephants from Chen's operation. The neural control technology had been exposed and banned worldwide. Maya had turned state's evidence, helping prosecute not just her father and Kova, but an entire network of criminal scientists who had planned to adapt the technology for human use. The elephant mafia had been dismantled, though Arya knew there would always be those who would harm the innocent for profit. The bull elephant approached her one last time. His trunk gently touched her hand, a gesture of trust and farewell. Behind him, his family waited patiently. They would roam free together, their bonds stronger than ever. "You know what I learned from all this?" Sophia said softly as they watched the elephants disappear into the jungle. "We thought we were saving him, but in the end, he saved us. He showed us that the strongest chains aren't made of metal, and the most powerful connections aren't made of technology. He showed us something else too," Arya replied, thinking of how the elephants had come together to overcome the signal. "That sometimes the best way to fight darkness isn't with more darkness. It's with connection. With community. With love." The bull elephant's final trumpet echoed through the trees, not a cry of pain or defiance now, but a song of freedom. Of family. Of a spirit that could be wounded but never broken. And deep in the jungle, other elephants answered his call, welcoming home a hero who had turned his scars into strength and his suffering into salvation. The greatest victory, Arya realized, wasn't just in saving one elephant. It was in remembering what he had taught them, that in the fight against cruelty and greed, our strongest weapons are not our technologies or our strategies, but our connections to each other. Our capacity to care, to sacrifice, to love. That was a lesson worth any price to learn.